Welcome one and all, I'm Alexis, aka the Sloth Reader, and I'm here today to do my August wrap-up. So if you guys will remember, I set out to do a no TBR August month. I gave myself the challenge of only reading things I was in the mood for, and I said in that not TBR video that it was either going to go really well or it was going to fail horribly. And I'm pleased to say that I think it went very well. I ended up reading 7 things and then I DNF'd one thing about halfway through, which I'll get to in a second, which is pretty average for me. I would say on average I read 8 to 9 books a month. So I was reading stuff and pretty much everything I read this month I really enjoyed. So let's just go ahead and get into it. There's like a lot of cops outside my apartment building, and I don't know why. So like I said, I did have one DNF this month, and I do want to talk about it because like I'll get into it, and that was The Traitor Borrowed Cormorant, which I was reading as part of the birthday read-along that my dear friend Melanie was doing for her birthday. Like I said, I did DNF it about 50% of the way through, and the reason I did that is because I was listening to the audiobook. My audiobook got corrupted, and so I basically had to delete it and then like try and reinstall it, and I was listening to it on Hoopla, and Hoopla has like the worst user interface ever for playing stuff, so I basically couldn't find where I was in the book, and I was like, you know, I don't care that much. And also just I didn't think the audiobook was the right way to go with this one, because it's a very political heavy fantasy, and there's a lot of characters, there's a lot of places, there's a lot going on, and I definitely think with the audiobook it left me feeling very confused a good portion of the time. So when my audiobook got corrupted and I had to delete it and reinstall it, I kind of was just like, meh. Objectively, I think this book could easily be a 4 or 5 stars. That's why I'm going to link Melanie's review down below, because I would encourage you guys to check it out if it's something you're interested in. Just circumstances meant that I couldn't finish it this month. Moving on to my least favorite book I read this month, which I ended up only giving 3 stars, so I consider that pretty good, and that was Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. And honestly, I felt like this was kind of just meh. I feel like the culprit, the killer in this story is obvious from like the 3rd chapter. I feel like it's really obvious what's going on, like who's done it and everything, so that's always pretty disappointing to me when I can guess like who the culprit is pretty early on, which I definitely could do with this one. And I also just feel like a lot of the stuff that happened in this story was done for shock value more than anything else, because I feel like so many of the like WTF moments in this book didn't actually have any like consequence on the story. Like the story could have been the exact same without them. So I feel like they were kind of just put in there for shock value, which kind of cheapened it a little bit in my opinion. So I ended up giving this one a 3 stars. I'm really excited to watch the HBO adaptation, but considering I loved Gone Girl, this one was just okay for me. The next book I read after that was Killer Instinct by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the 2nd book in the Naturals series, and I ended up giving this one a 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I didn't like it quite as much as I enjoyed the first one, and mostly that was just because I knew who ultimately the killer was by like the first like introduction. I was like, yeah, that person's a killer. And so like that kind of ruined the enjoyment, because when the killer was revealed I was like, called it. Thought it was pretty obvious. And I also just didn't love the way the plot twist in this one was handled, so that took away a little. But other than that, I still really love the characters, and I still really loved what we got to see from like certain characters' backstories and what different emotions we got to see from certain characters, and I liked some of the new characters that were introduced in this one. So overall, it was a really good 2nd book, and it makes me super excited to read the 3rd one. The next book I'm going to read was another 4 stars, and that was The Dark Prophecy, Book 2 in the Trials of Apollo by Rick Riordan. I feel like at this point the only thing I have to say about Rick Riordan books is that I really enjoy them. In this series, I absolutely adore Apollo as a main character. He's such a disaster bisexual, and I adore him. I really enjoyed getting to see some old characters from previous Rick Riordan series in this book. I thought this book was super fun. I'm very excited to pick up the next one, especially because I know that there are other characters who are going to get introduced that I'm really excited to see again. So yeah, gave this one 4 stars. I enjoyed it as much as I enjoy every other Rick Riordan book. I don't really have that much to say. The next book I'm going to talk about is a shocker, because I swore I would never read this book, and then like last year I was like, okay, I'll read this book, and then I read this book and hella enjoyed it, and that was Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Dark Artifices. You guys know that I have a rocky history with Miss Clare and her work, so I was very hesitant to pick up Lady Midnight, and then I did, and I actually really enjoyed it. Honestly, I really enjoyed the characters. I can't help but just love the Blackthorns. Definitely my favorite character is Mark. Like, I love Mark so much. And behind him is Christina. I really love Christina a lot too, which is strange because I feel like before this book I read just a lot of people giving her like hate and like whatever. I really like Christina. I think she's fantastic. And I really enjoyed this book. I liked the mystery in it. It was really intriguing when the culprit of the mystery was revealed. I was shook. I was messaging my friend Beth. I'll leave her Instagram link down below because she loves these books, and so I was like live tweeting her all of my thoughts about them, and that honestly made the experience a lot better too. I did give this one 4 stars, possibly leaning up to a 4.5. The only thing I did not like about this book is that this book has like 300 pages of Emma and Julian pining after each other, and it got really old really fast. I know that a part of the series like plot is that like Parabatai can't be together, and like the reason Parabatai can't be together, but honestly like this book could have been half the size if the Emma Julian drama had like just the pining is what I can like. Once they kind of got over that, I was like, okay, whatever. But the like endless pining, I was like, all right, I'm done with this. I want to move on. So I did give it 4 stars for that reason, but I did really enjoy it, and I'm super excited to read Lord of Shadows now. The next book I'm going to talk about was a reread for me, and that was Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt. If you guys don't know, I love Tuck Everlasting. Every adaptation, iteration of Tuck Everlasting is my favorite anything. So this was just rereading a favorite of mine. I do think the story is like a 4 stars, but it's like a 5 star in my heart. But I love this. I will say, as an adult reading this, it's a little different than being like a kid and reading this, because as an adult, I do recognize that the whole, Jesse's 17, really he's over 100, but Jesse being 17 and Winnie's only 11, and he's like, I'll wait for you, Winnie. It's a little weird. Like, I love this story, and even I'll be the first one to be like, it's a little weird, Jesse, you know, hit on somebody your own age, because that's, whew, real creepy. And moving on to my 5-star reads for the month. My first one was Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman, and I kind of have 2 reasons why this one got 5 stars for me. The first was that this has been the year of Norse mythology for me, honestly, between reading the Magnus Chase books and the new God of War game, which, if you guys didn't know, loved the new God of War game. It was whatever, that's a whole nother video. And it's centered around Norse mythology. And so, like, I had already had a little bit of knowledge about Norse mythology, but, like, all of these things together just has, like, made me fall in love with Norse mythology. And so adding in Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman, which is just a collection of, like, really vital Norse myths, it was just everything I wanted. I had so much fun listening to this book. Some of the stories are funny, some of the stories are scandalous. I really enjoyed learning these myths and getting to know the gods a lot better. It just was really enjoyable. The other reason is because, like I said, I did listen to this one on audiobook, and it's narrated by Neil Gaiman himself. And I'm going to be honest, Neil Gaiman has a really sexy voice, and I super enjoyed that. And it made the whole experience that much better. So I gave Norse Mythology 5 stars, really loved it. I will now be reading every book by Neil Gaiman on audiobook because he narrates them all. And that is a lesson I have learned that I will stick to, but Norse mythology was really fun. If you're interested in learning more about the Norse myths, I would definitely recommend this one. And finally, the last book I read, and my favorite book of the month, easily one of the best books I've read all year, is Sing Unburied Sing by Jesmyn Ward. If you guys didn't know, this was actually the 2017 National Book Award winner for fiction, and it's totally deserving of that. This book basically follows a black family in the South, and it kind of heavily focuses on the 13-year-old son, Jojo, who is biracial. But this book is about, like, being black in the South and the unique experience of being black in the South, with a history of racial tensions, but it also focuses on those racial tensions and the evolution of those racial tensions and the history of the South in key moments and key, periods, and how that connects to racial tensions in the South. But it's also about family and the obligations that parents and children have to each other. Just, it was so good. Like, I'm not very critical of a reader, to be perfectly honest. As long as something's not horrible, I usually will enjoy it. But, like, even I was reading this book just going, wow, picking up on so many themes and so many raw emotional commentary, and it was just, wow. It's just an incredible book, and I highly recommend this one. If you're the kind of person who enjoys literary fiction and you haven't read this yet, you need to get on that. If you're the kind of person looking to get into literary fiction, I would recommend it. It's short, it's not difficult to understand. If you're the kind of person who's looking to branch out and maybe read Southern fiction, I would recommend this. This is a very good example of modern Southern fiction, and it was just so good. I can't say that enough. I gave this book 5 stars. I think it's totally deserving of 5 stars. It was totally deserving of the National Book Award win last year, and it's just so good. Alrighty guys, so those were all of the things I read in August. Like I said, my anti-TBR August I consider to be a success. I'm definitely probably going to do it again next year. I really enjoyed just getting able to pick up random stuff when I was in the mood for it, and like I said, most everything I read this month I really enjoyed, so I'm very excited that my experiment was a success. I would absolutely love to know what was your favorite and least favorite book you read in August. If you like what I do, upload videos on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and I'll see you guys again soon with another one. Bye!